In a recent short I made, I talked about how Jinx was surprisingly good in Pokémon FireRed and LeafGreen. I had always written her off due to being an in-game trade and for her admittedly off-putting design, but she performed much better than I expected in a recent playthrough I did. After that video, I started to wonder how the other in-game trade Pokémon fared, and I decided that ranking them all here would be a good way to measure their worth. The only game that I'm looking at today is FireRed and LeafGreen because there are in-game trades for every single mainline Pokemon game, and it would likely take an hour to accurately list them all. There are a total of 9 in-game trades in both FireRed and LeafGreen. 2 of them are kinda special, but I'll talk about that when we get there. I'm going to look at these trades in 2 different ways. How good are the Pokemon in battle, and how much does it help to fill up the Pokédex? The Pokédex is much more important in this game than others because of the rewards you get for clearing milestones, such as the HM for Flash, the Leftovers, and the EXP share. Lastly, I just want to ask you to like, comment, and subscribe because it helps with the algorithm. And without any more talking, let's start with the worst and work our way up. Number 9. Tangela for Venonat. This trade is located in the Pokemon Lab on Cinnabar Island, and there are several reasons why this is the worst. First off is the fact that Tangela is available literally 15 seconds away from Pallet Town, and even if you didn't have Fly, you could surf from Cinnabar Island to get it in under a minute. This trade is literally just trading a Pokemon that is actually hard to get for a Pokemon that is really outside your front door. Not to mention that even though Tangela has a surprisingly high special attack and defense, its other stats are pretty low, and 3/4 of the Elite Four counter is pure grass typing. Being as generous as possible, I could say that the boosted trade experience could help you with level growing for help against Giovanni, but you almost certainly have a good water type by this point in the game. Just skip this one and catch a Tangela for yourself if you even want one. Number 8. Seal for a Ponyta. Yet another trade in the Cinnabar Lab, and this one is only marginally less terrible than the first one. While Dugong is a very good all-around defense Pokemon, it can help with Giovanni and Lance. The simple fact is that you can get a Seal much easier than you can get a Ponyta. Seal is literally on the way to Cinnabar unless you use Fly and take the easy way from Pallet Town. And even then, it is only a minute of surfing to get to the Seafoam Islands, where Seal can appear on every floor for an up to 50% encounter rate. Ponyta, meanwhile, is only available on Kindle Road and Mount Ember, so not until you beat Blaine, and it is in an area that can be completely ignored if you only focus on getting the badges. Overall, points for having a useful Pokemon, but you can get one yourself no problem. Number 7. Electrode for a Raichu. The third and last trait of the Pokemon Lab, and this one has at least situational use. When compared to Raichu, Electrode is weaker in special attack and much weaker in physical attack. But it is much faster and slightly more bulky in physical defense, so it is a matter of preference for the one you want more. The issue comes when you compare Pikachu's locations to Voltorb's locations. Pikachu can appear in Viridian Forest, while Voltorb can appear on Route 10, with both being available at the power plant. Both Voltorb and Pikachu appear at around the same levels, and Voltorb specifically can be found only 5 levels away from evolution. The only scenario I can think of where this trade would be worth it is if you caught Voltorb, really did not want to train it up, and so just caught Pikachu, slapped a Thunderstone on it, and traded it just to fill up a slot in the Pokédex. Still, Electrode is a bit out of the way and is useful for Lorelei. So this trade is the first one that isn't completely pointless. Number 6. Lickitung for either Golduck or Slowbro depending on the version you play. Listen, Lickitung is not anywhere close to a good Pokemon. Heck, its base stat total is less than 400, and you have to trade away either the pretty good Golduck or the great Slowbro, depending on the version you play. Golduck is useful against Blaine, Giovanni, and a bit against Bruno, while Slowbro is useful against Koga, Blaine, Giovanni, and Bruno, and that is only looking at its type and ignoring its excellent stats. Both of these Pokemon are unlocked with the Super Rod, or could be found on Route 25 for a 100% encounter rate with Surf. Lickitung is completely useless for the entire mid to end game, and I am only placing it this high because this is the only way to get Lickitung in these games, so it is mandatory for Pokédex completion. Get it for the Dex, and chuck it into the PC. Number 5. Nidorina for Nidorino and vice versa. This one is on Route 11 and is going to take some explanation. On Route 3, you can catch both Nidoran male and Nidoran female, with the catch being that one of these Pokemon is common while the other is a 1% encounter. The positions switch depending on the version you play, with Nidoran male being the 1% for LeafGreen, and Nidoran female being the 1% for FireRed. This trade is meant to make catching them easier if you don't want to look for 1% encounters. And both of the Nidos are great Pokemon. Nidoking a bit more, but Nidoqueen is no punching bag. The reason that this isn't higher is because of its placement. You have already gone through Mount Moon at this point. If you have either a Nidorino or Nidorina, there's no way you're not slapping a Moonstone on it at this point, especially before Lieutenant Surge. And if you wanted to get the other Nido for Pokédex completion, there's already a much better trade for getting the entire line. But that will come later down the list. Number 4. Farfetch'd for Spearow. Located in Vermilion City and probably the most famous in-game trade-only Pokemon, Farfetch isn't as bad as people make it out to be. Stat-wise, it's actually on par with Pidgeotto, and so is actually where it should be for this point in the game. It has decent physical attack and access to both Cut and Fly, so it could do great work on Erica. After Erica, it does fall off due to no evolution, but you can easily get a Dodrio or even a legendary bird if you wait to replace it after Koga. Farfetch also lets you put Pokemon you aren't going to have on your final team, and as Cut is no longer needed after Erica, you can safely box Farfetch with no real repercussions. A much better Pokemon than people give credit for. Number 3. Nidoran female for male and vice versa. This is the better version of the Route 11 trade I mentioned earlier. On Route 5, you can find a trainer going to trade the pseudo version exclusive for the other, and there are a few reasons as to why this is better than the other trade by a wide margin. Once again, you can trade a common Pokemon for a 1% encounter, and said rare Pokemon is very good. More so for Nidoking because of just how physically strong it is, but both can take out Erica, Koga, Blaine, Bruno, and Agatha with their Poison Ground dual typing. You can catch 2 of your version's Nidos, trade one for the rare one, and have both lines by level 16 each. From a Pokédex perspective, you get 6 entries for the price of 3, and that's a huge deal. The only reason it isn't higher is because you technically don't need it if you're lucky or patient with your encounters, but if you don't like 1% encounters and want the other Nido, get this trade. It'll save you a bunch of time. Number 2. Mr. Mime for Abra. This trade is on Route 2 and doesn't require a cut, so you can get it as soon as you arrive in Vermilion City. Mr. Mime is a Pokemon with great special attack and defense and good speed, but it's brought down by being physically frail. This is actually where Mr. Mime's whole shtick comes into play, as you're supposed to use Light Screen and Reflect to mitigate damage. If you play into Mr. Mime's strengths, you can have a very good special attacker that is also a special wall. The downside to Mr. Mime is how it looks like a serial killer. Also, if it is outsped by a physically strong Pokemon, it can be one-shotted due to its base 40 HP and only 65 special defense. Play around this though. and Mr. Mime can be useful against Erica, Koga, and Bruno due to type effectiveness. It can help set up defensive walls in battles against Sabrina and Blaine. Useful at least until the Elite Four, and could probably even put in work against them. Number 1 and the best trait in Pokémon FireRed and LeafGreen is Jinx for Poliwhirl. This trait is so good I made YouTube short to sing its praises, and I'll do it again here. The trait is in Cerulean City, but you can't get Poliwhirl until you get the Super Rod. So right before or after Erica, depending on the order you do things in. Jinx is a fast special attacking glass cannon, but can survive 1 or 2 hits if outsped. Jinx is actually slightly weaker than Mr. Mime stat-wise, but makes up for it with her massive type coverage. Jinx has advantage against Koga, Giovanni, Bruno, Agatha, and Lance, so basically half of the mid to late game. She can even put in work against the final champion battle, countering Pidgeot, Rhydon, and Exeggutor. If you pass Jinx before, definitely give her a second chance and you won't regret it. Also try to ignore her odd design. Thank you guys so much for watching, and what do you think of my list? Do you agree with it, or do you think I got something wrong? Have you ever used these Pokemon, and if so, which ones? Do you plan to use them now that you've seen this video? Please comment down below, and have a great day. Goodbye.